We're all tired of seeing Spider-Man's origin story. I mean, how many times does Uncle Ben have to die? A kid visits a science exhibit and gets bitten by a radioactive spider, becomes a superhero. We've all heard it before. But did you know there was more to that story? That simply getting bitten by an unlucky spider isn't enough to make you go from this to this? Certain variations have suggested that since the spider was crawling around in a science exhibit, it was part of a study itself. A genetically engineered super spider that carried a powerful retrovirus, capable of spreading from cell to cell in Peter's body and eventually becoming ingrained in his DNA. Other stories have suggested that Peter actually had a rare dormant gene caused by celestial experiments on early mankind, and when he was bitten by the spider, something about that radioactive venom activated those genes and turned him into Spider-Man. Still, other stories suggest that the spider bite was magical, and Peter was actually chosen to become Spider-Man by an extra-dimensional spider deity. But no matter which version of this story you buy into, they're all trying to fix the same basic problem. Spider-Man is too strong. According to the old-fashioned, unexpanded, unedited conventional origin story, when Peter was bitten by the spider, he gained spider-like senses, speed, and strength. While an ordinary human being might be able to lift 4 times their weight if they're really good, some spiders can lift up to 50 times their weight, meaning if a teenager of Peter's size had the proportional strength of a spider, he'd be capable of lifting up to 8,350 pounds, or about the weight of 2 cars stacked on top of each other. That's some impressive work, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense because of something called the square cube law. Take a look at Spider-Man's arm here. We all know that as someone gets stronger, muscles increase in height and width, but not length. That would be weird. In other words, their strength increases by a square. A buffer Spider-Man wouldn't necessarily be taller, he would just have more surface area. But if we wanted Spider-Man to grow in general, his volume would increase by height, width, and length. A cube. As an organism grows, it gets bigger faster than it gets stronger. Meaning, spiders don't lift up to 50 times their weight because their muscles are better than ours. They lift up to 50 times their weight because they're tiny. If they were scaled up to Peter Parker's size, they'd be just as strong as an average human. Scale them up even further and they'd eventually collapse under their own weight. But Spider-Man stands in blatant defiance of that rule. He lifts things up to 50 times his size as though he were an inch tall or smaller. I mentioned earlier that 8,000 pounds was impressive, and it is. Many times the world record. But Spidey can do way better than that. Here he is lifting a massive chunk of cement blown straight from the side of a building. And here he's just lifting a building, or supporting one section of it. Anyway, it was a big building. Here, Spider-Man lifts a train car while enraged. The average train car weighs about 20 tons, or 40,000 pounds, so that's 240 times his weight. At this point, we're getting way stronger than a spider should be. One time, he literally knocked Scorpion's jaw off with a single punch. And in another story, this private jet was falling out of the sky, so Spider-Man just goes outside, forces the landing gear down, and supports the weight of the entire plane on his back. Being a nerd, he even calculates the struggle in his head. Landing weight over 75,000 pounds, full on fuel, add another 30 to 40,000, combined with thrust, and Spider-Man is supporting over 115,000 pounds in this panel. That's 57.2 tons. At this point, not only is Spider-Man holding up nearly 689 times his weight, but is the equivalent of supporting 8 African elephants at once, the largest land animal on Earth, or 6 T-Rexes, whichever you prefer. Spider-Man spotted dinosaurs before. Interestingly enough, despite his amazing strength, one of the most iconic Spider-Man moments of all time was about him struggling to lift something. If This Be My Destiny is a classic story arc written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Steve Ditko. It acted as one of the earliest powerful dramas in comic book history. When Peter Parker's adoptive mother, Aunt May, suffered a mysterious illness, apparently caused by an earlier blood transfusion between her and Peter, the doctors told him she probably won't make it. Peter does everything he can, of course, contacting some experts and even managing to raise money for a possible cure. But a necessary ingredient gets stolen by a supervillain while en route to delivery. This makes him furious. Spider-Man isn't going to have this. Aunt May's blood will not be on his hands, so he tracks down the supervillain responsible in an underwater base because why not? And the two face off in a battle so intense that they actually collapse the support beam for the base's iron interior. Whoops. You see, you can't have a base underwater without making it out of something that can withstand the pressure underwater. Nearly the entire upper section collapses on Spider-Man. The villain runs for his life, and the penultimate issue of the story ends with Spider-Man trapped beneath an unmovable iron surface as water slowly starts to fill in from above. This is the cover for that story's conclusion. Beaten, weak, his aunt's life hanging by a thread, his own life measured in minutes as the ceiling begins to break. Spider-Man can't even budge the heavy debris he's trapped under. And the one thing that can save his only family is just out of his reach, because he couldn't control his temper, because he made that ceiling collapse. Aunt May is sick because of his radioactive blood, and Peter laments his tragedy. He can almost see his aunt and uncle beside him. It always came back to him. He was the one who let Uncle Ben's killer get away, and he was not going to be responsible for another death. So, with every muscle in his body, Spider-Man starts standing up. And it should be too much for him. It might be too much for him. His head is pounding. His eyes are blacking out. But anyone can win when the odds are easy. It's when the going gets tough. When there seems to be no chance. That's when it counts.
I did it.
I have two different proposals for what happened in this scene. Proposal 1. By comparing the iron layer to Spider-Man's size, we can determine that there are about 37 Peters worth of iron visible in this panel. Assuming the metal's width is roughly equal to Peter's height, and there's not much extra iron off the panel, this would put the iron's weight at a rough 24 tons. Sure, he's done more impressive things since, but maybe he's working out. Proposal 2. While the hunk of the iron is falling on Spider-Man, he estimates that it must weigh more than a locomotive. Hyperbole. Probably, but he is a super genius. He's made rough estimates of heavy things while lifting them since, and we've never seen the full extent of the metal he's trapped under. So, giving him the benefit of the doubt, the most common locomotive in North America in 1965 was the EMG GP9 locomotive, weighing in at 129.8 tons, far more weight than anything else we've described today. But again, he was really pushing his limits when he lifted this thing. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, come on, Spider-Man can't lift 130 tons. You just told us that lifting half of that was like lifting 8 African elephants. Why even bring it up for comparison? Because I just wanted to point out that in Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter Parker actually managed to hold this entire ferry together for at least a few seconds. We can see in the scene that the vessel's name is Spirit of America, and that's a real ferry you can actually ride between Staten Island and Manhattan. According to George G. Sharp Incorporated, the company that's designed the ferry, it weighs 3,200 tons. So, in the scene, Spider-Man is holding together 1,600 tons of metal with each hand. That's over 45,390 times his body weight, or over 21 blue whales. This Peter Parker will be the strongest thing on our planet. So, the next time somebody tells you that Spider-Man can do whatever a spider can, tell them to give him a little more credit than that. He's nothing short of amazing.